The three-day summit of G7 leaders has ended, with the G7 leaders standing in solidarity in support for Ukraine's fight for freedom, among other things. Here are some of the highlights of the summit.
Prime Minister took it like a champ. Giorgia Meloni stood patiently, fixed her hair a few times, inspected the signage, had a few laughs with the photographers, and even took a selfie with them. 21 minutes later, her last guest finally arrived, Joe Biden. Aviators in place, he trudged along to greet Meloni. No one knows why the US president was so late. Maybe his driver took a wrong turn, or who knows. Maybe it's just fashionable to be late to a party, but Meloni wasn't one to let it slide. Soon, bygones were bygones. The two leaders greeted each other. They exchanged kisses, they hugged, they posed for the camera, and it was time to leave. But Biden had to do a Biden. He shook Meloni's hands, and usually that's good enough, but the US president took it a step further. He saluted her. Aye, aye, Captain. The G7 is a tough ship to see. Solemn faces, they look like a class that has just been pulled up. Meanwhile, Meloni, in her pink suit, exuding the confidence of a class topper. She greeted leaders with full smiles and an Indian touch. Well, maybe she should have stuck with that, because some hugs were longer than others. Greetings done, the class of G7 2024 huddled together. Not for serious talks, but for some celebrations. It was German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's birthday, and what's a birthday without some singing, even if it's off tune?
Happy birthday to you, Olaf. Happy birthday to you.
No cake though, because the leaders already have a lot on their plate. Once the singing was done, it was finally time for diplomacy. You know, the boring part of the summit. And someone seemed to doze off. No prizes for guessing who. Well, maybe Biden was just resting his eyes. But Zelensky wouldn't have it. He jumped from his seat to wake him up. But the most viral moment of this summit happened here, at the flag ceremony. It was the last event of day one. And then there was Biden, shuffling away from the group, wandering off to speak to a parachutist. But Meloni would have none of it. She dragged him back, and other leaders positioned themselves around him. Disaster was averted. Seems like these G7 leaders are like any other family. They're dysfunctional. They have tensions between each other. And sometimes they have to steer a wayward member back to the right way. But when it comes to the family photo, it's all smiles. They are usually held in picturesque settings where meetings are conducted, strategies are fine-tuned, values are reaffirmed, and so-called bonds are strengthened. There is another G7 ritual that plays a powerful uniting role, the family photo. When all the leaders attending G7 pose for a photograph. It is a carefully choreographed event, but despite the stiff body language and perfect smiles, drama can slip through the cracks.